You are watching Security Watch. This is Zain. Today, the topic of our show revolves around the internationalization of the Kashmir issue and also Pakistan-India tensions. Today, our special guest is Lord Nazir Ahmed. He needs no introduction. He is the member of the House of Lords in the UK and also one of the most prominent figures when it comes to the internationalization of the Kashmir issue. Our second guest today is none other than, and as always, Mr. Athar Javed. He is a senior geopolitical analyst and also DG Pakistan House and Islamabad-based think tank. Welcome to our show, Lord Nazir Ahmed. This is Zain Khan. It is a pleasure having you on Security Watch.
Thank you very much for inviting me to be on your show.
Welcome to our show, Mr. Athar Javed, as always.
Thank you very much, Zain.
Lord Nazir, I want to get to the first question. And since you're one of the most prominent figures in the UK when it comes to the Kashmir issue, I want to get to a very technical question. India's excessive strategic arrogance has risked peace and stability in South Asia. What are the risks, in your opinion?
Well, first of all, you have to understand this regime, the RSS, BJP, the fascist Hindutva believing government. Their belief has always been that they want greater India, Akhand Bharat. So you have to understand, just like the Nazis, just like those fascists who believe in the expansionist policy, they want the land, but they don't want the people. So they've not only just wanted to take over Kashmir, which they have with the revocation of 370 and 35A, not only that they've invaded Kashmir now legally, but what they've done in actual fact is that they've tried to go near the border, the actual line of whatever it's called with China. They've been hit back from there. They wanted to take over some of the land, or they've claimed certain land with Nepal. They've also have problems with Bangladesh because of the Citizens Amendment Act. They will give rights and citizenship to all the Hindus, but not Muslims from Bangladesh. So these Hindutva believing fascists, they have got a problem with all the neighbors. Just remind yourself, Zain, when the Indian government, a couple of 3 years ago, maybe even, when they were talking about isolating Pakistan, and they said that we will isolate Pakistan. Pakistan will have no country that will communicate with them or have anything to do with them, because they were running a narrative which was cross-border terrorism, supporting terrorism. They said something like it's the hub for terrorism. They were training and all sorts of nasty things. But in actual fact, what they've done is they've exposed their own fascist movements of RSS, how they've been training them. And if you have any pictures, you can see RSS students with the swords and rifles who are training because they want to kill minorities, Muslims. They want to kill Christians. They want to kill Hindutva. They want to kill the Dalits. They want to kill the Sikhs. They want to kill everyone because they want greater Akhand Bharat. So in my view, they have been exposed. So if you read Washington Post, New York Times, Guardian, Al Jazeera, all from last week on the 5th of August, you will note that all of them refer to their fascist beliefs and how they have been harassing the minorities on a daily basis. Even those students, Muslim students, girls who have been raped, harassed by the police, and they get away with it. This is a unique rogue state with 1.4 billion people on earth, with supposedly, which they used to claim that it was the largest democracy in the world. It is not, because a democracy is a place where everybody has same rights. Here you have the Hindutva elitists who have all the rights, but nobody else has. Even the police and the journalists, even the judiciary, even is subservient to these extremists. So it's a very dangerous place to live in.
Okay, but Lord Nazir, after 1 year of a lockdown type of curfew in Indian-occupied Jammu and Kashmir, where is this heading, and what should be done to help the Kashmiris?
First of all, it's not only lockdown. What we need to do is to look at what they've actually done. India has revoked 370 and 35A, which was an agreement between the Kashmiri leadership and the Indian government. They've revoked that. They've actually revoked the similar agreement with Pakistan. So now, in actual fact, India becomes a invader. They've invaded, annexed Kashmir. So under international law, which is illegal to annex 10 million people and take their rights. So yes, there is a lockdown. Yes, there has been over $5.5 billion loss to the economy of Kashmir. They don't have the access to 4G, 3G. In fact, some have had their internet restored to 2G. So their education is affected, their business is affected. They cannot communicate with anything outside the occupied valley. So the real situation is that even the BJP, RSS coalition partners are still under house arrest. There are something like 12 to 14,000 youth who are missing. And you see on daily basis, if you look at yesterday's Al Jazeera, they've reported on those 3 boys that went missing, and they then their bodies appeared, dead bodies, and the Indian authorities made it look like as though these were militants and they were shot dead. Actually, they were not. They had nothing to do. Their father has clearly said that they had nothing to do with any militancy or freedom struggle or freedom fighting. They were 3 poor young men who went out to find work, and the police or the army rather, they shot them, killed them, and then these extrajudicial killings where they pretend these are encounters, fake encounters, which they have done in the past. You remember only last month when the old gentleman, 60-odd-year-old, who was shot dead, pulled out of his car, shot dead. His grandson was then placed on his chest for photographs, and it was all a drama. And that man just went to bring some milk for his family and had nothing to do with resistance. So they do that on daily basis. These are fake encounters, fake events that they do, and the international community now understands. So if you ask me what we should be doing, we should be talking about it like we are doing here. But more importantly, we need to get the international community's opinion on our side. And I think the OIC and other Muslim countries could have done much better by taking this matter to International Criminal Court and indicting those generals and those politicians in Delhi for war crimes, for invasion illegally of a country, and a lot of other breach of international law, which they haven't done so.
Mr. Athar Javed, I want to get to you since you're a geopolitical analyst and a strategist. I want to ask you, how will India react if the situation in Indian-occupied Kashmir worsens?
Well, first of all, I would say 3 words: that India is in trouble, isolated, and literally self-inflicted wounds, if we look at that. Because a year ago, actually, yes, there was a status quo, yet there were issues, but the issues were being, we were hoping to be resolved through dialogue. And India, of course, declined to do it. India thinks that it's playing in another league, but we have seen during the past year that India is completely isolated. And that demonstrates also the voices from British Parliament, European Union, Geneva Commission, UN Commission of Human Rights, and several dozens of reports basically in last few years. Now let's look into what will happen now if it worsens. First of all, there is a need for India to understand that you cannot really lock down 7-8 million people forever. It's not possible. And the indigenous movement, which has been there since late 80s, would definitely will occur and reoccur. The martyrdom of Burhan Wani and subsequent martyrdoms of other young Kashmiri leaders would definitely undermine what's happening right now. That what India is trying to do. India is trying to, as we all know, we have said it many times, trying to change the demographic. But that will not serve the purpose, because the law and order situation, administrating is different, but administrating an entire population is quite different, and that too with the iron fist, and that too with the almost 900,000 troops. We have also seen tendencies within the Indian Army, that Indian Army is now stands among the rogue army of the world. The reason being that professionalism demands that if there is a trouble within in a country, even that can be a very limited response from high-handedness from a military. But this appears to me that the way the policy was crafted, it has gotten out of their hand. On the level of psychology, Indian Army is committing, their soldiers officers are committing suicide. Their morale is very down. The weaponry they are using is almost, they try to also either hide it or do something with it. So at times they disappear, but also the most important thing, which I would say, these night raids which they are carrying out on innocent young Kashmiris and young girls and abducting them from their homes, and then trying to blackmail the family so they're not to participate in any kind of protest. If it worsens, for example, from the Pakistani point of view, if it, like India has been carrying out cross-border violation, almost 2,000 since January now, and Pakistan will respond as it did previously last year on 27th February in coins. And also this time, if India misadventures or mounts a false flag operation or any kind of operation, I think it would be very difficult for India to contain. And that's why we consider that India is in trouble and isolated, as I said from the start. But Pakistan needs to do that. They need to, keep pressuring diplomatically. And as Lord Nazir, and he has led many for the past few decades, led all the voices and his colleagues from different, his own house and House of Commons, the APPG on Kashmir committee, and all that in British Parliament. They have done a tremendous job, but we have to keep doing it. Sometimes we hear voices that as if it's a fatigue that people are doing again and again, but that's the way it is when you are fighting a Nazi mindset and you are fighting a fascist and real Hindu fundamental ideology. Because as a religion, Hindu religion doesn't say to exclude others. This is RSS, this is Modi's and BJP's understanding of Hindu religion. So that itself is a very big dilemma.
Mr. Athar Javed, since we're talking about the internationalization of the Kashmir issue, Pakistan manages to internationalize the Kashmir issue. What should the future government policies be to counter India's aggressive policies?
I think the first should be the consistency in Pakistani approach. We understand that there are issues within political parties, but if I remember correctly, for the past 30 years, that there has never been a government that they would sideline the Kashmir issue or go against it. So it is very appropriate to adopt a consistent policy, whichever party rules Pakistan. This is number one. Number two, there must be envoys, as we have been saying it for the past few years. There must be envoys that the United States have put, FPAC envoy. They used to have a envoy for Russia, special envoy to other countries. There must be at least for the main countries, Britain, US, and Middle East, and all that, it has to be a special envoy, despite having all the efforts we are conducting and doing. And there must be, if it's possible, we are not sure about how Foreign Office includes a desk in the Pakistan Embassy, and further and devote more resources and involve youth. Actually, that is another, I would say, important element, which of course the youth is involved under the leadership of different stalwarts like Lord Nazir and other our friends, Afzal Khan and others, Lord Qurban, for example. But we still consider that the youth under their shadow, and then they put youth in charge and they bring the university students. Look, it's a matter of awareness, a sustainable awareness campaign about the brutalities which Indian Army is conducting and carrying out for the past decades in Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir. This is number one objective. Number two is, without being discouraged by different responses, sometimes countries have their own national interests which they prefer. It doesn't mean they're not supporting you, like the kind we are hearing about OIC or Saudi Arabia. I think this matter too will be resolved. So because Saudi Arabia and OIC has been a great voice in the past, and I think they will in the end, definitely, as they have done it before. They will also continue to do it because they support the fundamental right to self-determination of Kashmiris. At times it happens. So we have to also be cognizant of these kind of pitfalls. It should not discourage us, basically. My point is to combine those efforts and concentrate on a single goal to counter India's false psychological warfare propaganda. And the best thing to do is continue to say the facts.
Lord Nazir, I want to get to a question that everybody has in their minds and they want to ask you. Do you see any role for the US or other international powers in the resolution of Kashmir? As the UN is currently incapable and lacks focus on the Kashmir conflict, how do you respond to that?
Zain, I think you've been very diplomatic. UN is weak, and UN is sometimes run through United States. Of course, their offices are in United States. So US has a very important role as the sole superpower. I'm not so sure whether it is the sole superpower now, because China and Russia, if they both put their hands together, they are very powerful. And you've seen Russia, how Russia has dominated the international community's policy on Syria, for instance. America wanted to have their own influence with the help of some of our Arab friends, Saudi Arabia, UAE, but Russia didn't accept that. With Iran, you've seen, whether you agree or not, the fact is that there are other players. So yes, international community has a role to play. And one of the most important things, if you look at human rights situation and the suffering of the people, of course, the Kashmiris deserve that. In my view, that should be the most important, but sadly it's not, because the international community, other nations have their own interest, economic interest, political interest. Then they must also have their security interest. And if there is a war between India and Pakistan, it will soon develop into a nuclear war. And that then obviously brings the whole, even if the nuclear weapons don't hit any of the other countries, they will hit their interests, because all the oil and the trade and the business that goes through Indian Ocean or through between Iran and UAE, it's all in the region. And if there's, God forbid, if there's a nuclear war, then the entire world will be affected through economy, through many other ways. So I think it is in their interest to find a permanent solution. And it's not difficult to sort of support right of self-determination under international law, UN resolutions of 1948 and 49, free, fair, and impartial plebiscite for the people of Kashmir once they can decide. I'm not one of those that just sort of says that halake Pakistan, because that might be my own personal view, but I think people should be given the right to decide whether they want to be with India, Pakistan, or independent. It is that right, because once they have that right, they will decide, and we will all be able to then relax, because then, inshallah, there will be peace. But it really is a role for the international community to wake up and to resolve. With just one report or a number of reports in relation to Kurdish mass graves in Iraq, the international community went in with blazing saddles and said that we want to sort this Saddam Hussein out. And here in Indian occupied Kashmir, we have Anjana Chatterjee and also Richard, her husband. This is a Hindu Indian woman, professor, along with her colleagues. They uncovered unmarked graves with thousands of bodies. And so, there are many similarities of even Madeleine Albright, when she, in her book, she says that Indian intelligence services were responsible for the massacre of Sikhs before President Clinton arrived in India, because they could then blame Kashmiris for killing them. So they've actually staged so many false flag operations and also lies and deceptions. The international community knows what they've been doing, and they know that this could endanger regional peace and also world peace too.
Lord Nazir Ahmed, you are an international face, an international figure when it comes to Kashmir. Tell us how the West is currently reacting towards the human rights violations in occupied Kashmir, publicly and also in closed doors.
Well, first of all, I think that there is a real concern, and that's amongst parliamentarians, whether they are MEPs, like Rana Saab has rightly pointed out, and the British parliamentarians. I think parliamentarians across the world, politicians, governments are a little reluctant, because most of the governments have their own economic interests, political interests in mind. You see a 1.34 billion people's market in India. And I'm afraid America, UK, US, and other countries make it very clear, France, Germany, their economic interests, their economy comes before human rights. And sadly, they mute when it comes to human rights and breach of international law and Hindu. This is why I think Rana Athar Saab and myself, we keep raising this issue that when we remained silent against the Nazis, the fascists in Germany. Look what happened. How many millions of Jewish members of our communities were killed, and many more. 60 million people or more that were killed just to get rid of these Nazis. So here we are in development of these new modern Nazis, the RSS Hindutva fascist movement, which believes in Akhand Bharat and also believes that everybody should be converted or reverted to Hinduism. And if you didn't worship the cow and you didn't, I don't want to say it on your program, but in relation to their drink that they have, that if you didn't do that, then you obviously lack faith. And this is and it's ridiculous argument that they are having with Nepal, whether one of their gods was born in Nepal, or was he Indian, or was he Nepalese? So they have these strange beliefs, and if you don't believe it, then they go for a war, which is very dangerous for regional peace as well as the international peace.
Mr. Athar Javed, I want to come to you. Do you see a risk of a conventional or a limited war between Pakistan and India? Is there a risk?
Yes, absolutely. Because India has, they operated on deceptive security policies and foreign policy. As I said, it's a strategic arrogance, as you put it in your first question, has somehow molded India's understanding about Pakistan. And they had, of course, all these adventures they carried out, and they were responded pretty well. And I can assure you this, that from the Pakistani point of view, that if India ever tries, which is trying very hard to have a nuclear bluff and push Pakistan into a limited conventional war, and then see whether we would be able to utilize any kind of our strategic assets, but they will be utilized, because when it's a matter of a country 7-8 times in size bigger than us, and the defense deals they are having, they are buying every damn fighter from Rafale to F-16. They want to build a factory in India, which United States has agreed to as a memorandum. And then it comes to they're buying from Israel. They are buying from wherever they can. The CIPRI report of Stockholm, this institute in Sweden, had been for a couple of years back that India tops a list in buying all kind of arms. So my assessment is that India wouldn't dare actually, but if it does, but there is a risk, because India, as I said in my intro, that India is, at the moment is isolated and self-inflicted wounds. As we all know, that when this kind of situation occurs, normally countries like India would respond negatively. This has been their record. So there is a risk of a limited war that should be considered by international community, including United States and Russia and all other countries, to pressurize India to back off, release this Kashmiri population from their they have caged 7-8 million people in Indian Jammu occupied Kashmir. So this is what I would say,
Mr. Athar Javed, let's get to the last question. What do you see the solution to this issue?
I think, Zain, the solution will be in a couple of phases and over a long period of time. The first phase involves that Pakistan and India should start talking. Like before, they were discussing prior to the 5th of August 2019 action of India, abrogation of 370 and 35A. This is the first, it's not a prerequisite, but this is the way forward. Number two is that India must start withdrawing their forces or troops from Indian occupied Kashmir. And number three, I would say, the phase which is very important, since the bilateral talks or efforts have been failed between Pakistan and India, there is a need for a third party to join in. And I propose that despite all the difficulties for the US, they are maybe the only party which can convince India to come back to table, take off all the curfew, reverse the 5th of August 2019 actions because they are illegal against international law. I think these 2-3 phases would produce a kind of solution to restart talks between Pakistan and India.
Thank you so much, Mr. Athar Javed, for being on Security Watch. It's always a pleasure having you.
Thank you very much, Zain.
Thank you so much, Lord Nazir Ahmed, for being on Security Watch. It was a pleasure having you.
Thank you very much.
This was Lord Nazir Ahmed, a prominent figure when it comes to the Kashmir issue in the UK, and also our second guest, as always, Mr. Athar Javed. We were discussing the internationalization of the Kashmir issue and also Pakistan and India tensions. Until the next episode of Security Watch, keep on watching Security Watch. Take care. Goodbye.